The Preciousness of Time, a sermon by Jonathan Edwards, somewhat revised and updated by David Payton. Sermon text, Redeeming the Time, Ephesians 5 verse 16. Christians should not only study to improve the opportunities they enjoy for their own advantage, as those who would make a good bargain, but also labor to reclaim others from their evil way of life, so that God might suspend his anger, and time might be redeemed from that terrible destruction, which, when it should come, would put an end to the time of God's patience. And it may be because of this that the reason is added, because the days are evil, Ephesians 5 verse 16. It is as if the Apostle Paul had said, "The corruption of the times tends to speed up God's threatened judgments, but your holy and circumspect walk will tend to redeem time from the devouring jaws of those judgments." However, we can certainly gather the following from our sermon text: that we should set a high value upon time, and be extremely careful that it is not lost, and we are therefore exhorted to exercise wisdom and circumspection in order that we may redeem it. As a result, it becomes obvious that time is exceedingly precious. Part 1. Why time is precious. Time is precious for the following reasons. Number 1. Because a happy or miserable eternity depends on the good or ill improvement of it. Things are precious in proportion to their importance, or to the degree to which they concern our welfare. Men usually set the highest value on those things upon which they believe their interest chiefly depends. And this renders time so exceedingly precious, because our eternal welfare depends on the improvement of it. Indeed, our welfare in this world depends upon its improvement. If we do not improve it, we will be in danger of coming to poverty and disgrace. But by a good improvement of it, we may obtain those things which will be useful and comfortable. But it is precious above all things, because our state throughout eternity depends upon it. The importance of the improvement of time in every other way is in subordination to this. Gold and silver are regarded as precious by men, but they are of no worth to any man unless by using them he has an opportunity of avoiding or removing some evil, or of acquiring something for his good. And the greater the good which he can obtain, using that thing which he acquires it with, then that thing is even of more value to him, whatever it may be, gold or silver, etc. Therefore, if a man by any thing which he has may save his life, which he must lose without it, he will look upon that thing which will help him escape death to be precious. Time is therefore precious to us, because by the right improvement of it, we have opportunity of escaping everlasting misery, and of obtaining everlasting blessedness and glory. On this depends our escape from an infinite evil, and our attainment of an infinite good. Number 2. Time is very short, which is another thing which makes it very precious. The shortage of any product causes men to set a higher value upon it, especially if it is necessary and they cannot do without it. When Samaria was besieged by the Syrians, and necessities were exceedingly rare, a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and 1/4 of a cab of dove droppings for 5 shekels of silver. 2 Kings 6 verse 25. So too, time is to be even more highly valued by men, because a whole eternity depends upon it, and yet we have but a little of time. For when a few years are finished, I shall go the way of no return. Job 16 verse 22. Now my days are swifter than a runner. They flee away, they see no good. They pass by like swift ships, like an eagle swooping on its prey. Job 9 verse 25 to 26. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. James 4 verse 14. Life is but as a moment to eternity. Time is so short, and the work which we have to do in it so great, that we have none of it to spare. The work which we have to do to prepare for eternity must be done in time, or it can never be done. It is also found to be a work of great difficulty and labor, and therefore that for which time is even more indispensable. Number 3. Time ought to be regarded by us as something very precious, because we are uncertain of its continuation. We know that it is very short, but we do not know how short. We do not know how little of it remains, whether a year, or several months, or only a month, a week, or a day. Every day we cannot be certain whether that day will not be the last, or whether we are to have the whole day. There is nothing that experience does more verify than this. If a man had only a little provision laid up for a journey or voyage, and at the same time knew that if his provision should fail, he would die, he would be more careful of the use of it. How much more then would many men value their time if they knew that they had just a few more months or days to live? And certainly a wise man will value his time even more than this, as he knows that this might be the case with him. This is the case with many now in the world, who enjoy health at the moment, and see no signs of approaching death. Many of them, no doubt, are to die next month, many next week, indeed many probably tomorrow, and some this night. Yet these same persons don't know anything of it, and perhaps think nothing of it. Neither they nor their neighbors can say that they are more likely to be taken out of the world than other people. This teaches us how we ought to value our time, and how careful we ought to be that we don't lose any of it. Number 4. Time is very precious because when it is past, it cannot be recovered. There are many things which men possess, which if they part with, they can get hold of again. If a man parts with something he had, even though he may not know the worth of it, or the need he should have of it, he often can regain it, at least with trouble and cost. If a man has been tricked in a bargain, and has bartered away or sold something, and afterwards regretted doing so, he may often recover what he had parted with. But it is not so when it comes to time. When once that is gone, it is gone forever. No amount of effort and no cost can recover it. Though we repent ever so much that we let it pass, and did not improve it while we had it, it will be to no purpose. Every part of it is graciously offered to us, that we may choose whether we will make it our own or not. But there is no delay. Time will not wait for us to see whether we will comply with this offer. If we refuse, it is immediately taken away, and never offered again. As to that part of time which is gone, however we have neglected to improve it, it is out of our possession and out of our reach. If we have lived 50 or 60 or 70 years, and have not improved our time, now it cannot be helped. It is eternally gone from us. All that we can do is to improve the little that remains. Indeed, if a man has spent all his life with only a few moments improved, all that wasted time is lost, and only those few remaining moments can possibly be made his own. And if the whole of a man's time be gone, and it is all lost, it is irrecoverable. Eternity depends on the improvement of time. But when the time of life is gone, it is impossible that we will ever obtain another such time. All opportunity of obtaining eternal welfare is utterly and everlastingly gone. Part 2. Reflections on Time Past. You have now heard of the preciousness of time, and you are the people concerned to whom God has committed that precious talent. You have an eternity before you. When God created you and gave you rational souls, He made you for an endless duration. He gave you time here in order to prepare for eternity, and your future eternity depends on the improvement of time. Consider, therefore, what you have done with your past time. You are not beginning your time now, but a great deal of it is past and gone, and all the intelligence and power and treasure of the universe cannot recover it. For many of you, more than half of your time is gone. If you are to live to the ordinary age of man, your glass may be more than half empty, and there may only be just a few sands remaining. Your sun is past the meridian, and perhaps just setting, or going into an everlasting eclipse. Consider, therefore, what account you can give of your improvement of past time. How have you let the precious golden sands of your hourglass run? Every day that you have enjoyed has been precious. Indeed, your moments have been precious. But have you not wasted your precious moments, your precious days, your precious years? If you were to add up the number of days that you have lived, what a number would there be? And how precious has every one of those days been? Consider, therefore, what you have done with them. What has become of them all? What can you show of any improvement made, or good done, or benefit obtained, answerable to all this time which you have lived? When you look back and search, do you not find that this past time of your lives is in a great measure empty, having not been filled up with any good improvement? And if God, who has given you your time, should now call you to give an account for it, what account could you give to Him? How much may be done in a year? How much good is there opportunity to do in such a space of time? How much service people may do for God, and how much for their own souls, if to their utmost they improve it? How much may be done in a day? But what have you done in so many days and years that you have lived? What have you done with the whole time of your youth, you that are past your youth? What has become of that precious season of life? Has it not all been fruitless? Would it not have been better for you if all that time you had been asleep, or in a state of non-existence? You have had much time of leisure and freedom from worldly business. Consider to what purpose you have spent it. You have not only had ordinary time, but you have had a great deal of holy time. What have you done with all the Sabbath days which you have enjoyed? Consider these things seriously, and let your own consciences answer. Part 3. The people who primarily deserve reproof from the subject of the preciousness of time. How little is the preciousness of time considered, and how little sense of it does the larger part of mankind seem to have, and to how little good purpose do many spend their time. There is nothing more precious, and yet nothing of which men are more wasteful. Time is to many as silver was in the days of Solomon, as the stones of the street, and not regarded of any worth. They act as if time were as plenty as silver was then, and as if they had a great deal more than they needed, and didn't know what to do with it. If men were as lavish with their money as they are of their time, and if it were as common a thing for them to throw away their money as it is for them to throw away their time, we would think that they were beside themselves, and not in their right minds. Yet time is thousands of times more precious than money, and when it is gone, cannot be purchased for money, cannot be redeemed by silver or gold. There are several sorts of people who are reproved by this doctrine, who I will particularly mention. Number 1. Those who spend a great part of their time in idleness, or in doing nothing virtuous for God's sake, nothing either for their own benefit, or for the benefit of their neighbor, for their family, or for the neighborhood to which they belong. There are some people upon whose hands time seems to lie heavy, who, instead of being concerned that they should improve it as it passes, and taking care that it does not pass without making it their own, act as if it were rather their concern to plan ways of how to waste and consume it. They act as though time, instead of being precious, is rather a mere nuisance to them. Their hands refuse to labor, and rather than exert themselves, they will let their families suffer, and will also suffer themselves. An idle soul shall suffer hunger. Proverbs 19 verse 15. Drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Proverbs 22 verse 21. Some spend much of their time at the pub, over their cups, and in wandering around from house to house, wasting away their hours in idle and unprofitable talk, which will yield no good result. In all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. Proverbs 14 verse 23. The direction of the Apostle in Ephesians 4 verse 28 is that we should labor, working with our hands the thing that is good, that we may have to give to him that needs. But idle men, instead of gaining anything to give to him that needs, rather wastes what they have already. He that is slothful in his work is a brother to him that is a great waster. Proverbs 18 verse 9. Number 2. Those people who spend their time in active wickedness, who do not merely spend their time in doing nothing to any good purpose, are reproved by this doctrine. Such do not only lose their time, but they do worse. With it they hurt both themselves and others. Time is precious, as we have heard, because eternity depends upon it. But by the improvement of time, we have the opportunity of escaping eternal misery and obtaining eternal blessedness. But those who spend their time in wicked deeds not only fail to improve their time to obtain eternal happiness or to escape damnation, but they spend it to quite a different purpose, to increase their eternal misery. They make their damnation more heavy and intolerable. Some spend a great deal of time in drunkenness, and in unclean talk and practices, in vicious company keeping, in corrupt and ensnaring the minds of others, setting bad examples and leading others into sin, ruining not only their own souls, but the souls of others. Some spend much of their precious time in belittling and backbiting, in talking against others, in fighting, provoking, and stirring up discord and conflict. It would have been better for some people, as well as for their neighbors, if they had never done anything at all, for then they would have done neither good nor harm. It would have been better for the towns in which these people lived to have kept them doing nothing in a state of inactivity. Those who have spent much of their time in wickedness, if they ever reform their lives and enter into a better lifestyle, will find not only that they have wasted the past, but that they have made work for the remaining time, to undo the damage they have done. How many men, when looking back upon their past lives, will wish that they had actually had no time? An eternity of even more dreadful misery in hell will be the fruit of all the time which these people spent on earth, having spent it in active wickedness rather than in idleness. Number 3. Those people who spend their time only in worldly pursuits, neglecting their souls, are also reproved by this doctrine. Men who may be extremely diligent in their worldly business, and may be careful not to let any of it be lost, so that it will in some way or other turn to their worldly profit, nevertheless still lose their time. Those people that improve time only for their benefit in time lose it, because time was not given for itself, but for that everlasting duration which comes after it. Those people, therefore, whose time is taken up in caring and laboring for the world only, in order to acquire food, drink, and clothing, in gathering for themselves treasures on earth, how to enrich themselves, how to make themselves great in the world, or how to live in comfortable and pleasant circumstances, while here, who use their mental energy and employ their strength in these things only, these people lose their precious time. Let those people, therefore, who have been guilty of spending their time in this way, think about it. You have spent a great part of your time and a great part of your strength in getting a little of the world, and how little good does it do for you now that you have got it? What real happiness or satisfaction can you enjoy from it? Will it give you peace of conscience, or any rational quietness or comfort? In what way is your poor, needy, perishing soul better for having acquired all these things? And what better prospects does it give you for your approaching eternity? And how will all that you have acquired be of benefit to you when time is at an end? Part 4. An exhortation to improve time. Consider what has been said of the preciousness of time, how much depends upon it, how short and uncertain it is, how irrecoverable it will be when gone. If you have the right understanding of these things, you will treasure your time more than the finest gold. Every hour and moment will seem precious to you. But besides these considerations which have been already set before you, consider also the following. Number 1. That you are accountable to God for your time. Time is a talent given to us by God. He has fixed the length of our life, and it is not for nothing. Our life was appointed for work. Therefore He will, at life's end, call us to an account of every moment. We must give account to Him of the improvement of all our time. We are God's servants. As a servant is accountable to his master, how he spends his time when he is set to work, so are we accountable to God. If men would consider this, and keep it in mind, wouldn't they improve their time in ways other than which they do already? Would you not behave other than the way you do, if you carefully considered every morning that you must give account to God how you will spend that day? And also if you carefully considered at the beginning of every evening that you must give an account to God how you will spend that evening? Christ has told us that for every idle word which men shall speak, they shall give account on the day of judgment. Matthew 12, verse 36. How well, therefore, may we conclude that we must give an account of all our idle misspent time. Number 2. Consider how much time you have lost already. For having lost so much, you have a greater need of diligently improving what time yet remains. You ought to mourn and lament over your lost time, but that is not all. You must apply yourselves more diligently to improve the remaining part, so that you may redeem lost time. You who are considerably late on in years, and have up till now spent your time in vanities and worldly cares, and have lived predominantly in the neglect of the interests of your souls, may very well be terrified and amazed when you think how much time you have lost and wasted away. In that you have lost so much time, you have need of more diligence for 3 reasons. Number 1. Because your opportunity is so much shorter. Your time at its whole length is short. But, setting aside all that you have already lost, how much shorter is it then? Regarding that part of your time which you have already lost, it now cannot be used. It would be better for you if that time had never been. Number 2. You have the same work to do that you had at first, work under greater difficulties. Up till now, you have done none of your required work. All remains to be done. You now have to work with vastly greater difficulties and opposition in your way than would have been if you had set about it at the proper time. The time in which to do your work has now not only grown shorter, but your work has now grown greater. You not only have the same work to do, but you have more work, for while you have lost your time, you have not only shortened it, but you have been making more work for yourself. This consideration should awaken you to a thorough care, not to let things carry on in this way any longer, and rouse you up immediately to apply yourselves to work with all your might. Number 3. The time which you have lost is the best time. The first of a man's time, after he comes to the point at which he can use reason, and at which point he is capable of performing his work, is the best. You who have lived in sin past your youth have lost the best part. There are now all these following things to be considered: that your time on the whole is very short, there is none to spare, a great part of it is gone, so that it has become much shorter. That which is gone is the best part, yet all your work remains, and not only so, but with greater difficulties than ever before, and the shorter your time is, the more work you have to do. What will awaken you to the necessities of a diligent improvement of your remaining time, if these things will not? Sometimes these thoughts have another effect, to discourage persons, and to make them think that, seeing they have lost so much time, it is not worth their while to attempt to do anything now. The devil makes fools of them. For when they are young, he tells them, there is enough time in future. There is no need of being in haste. It will be better seeking salvation hereafter. And they believe him. Afterwards, when their youth is past, he tells them that they now have lost so much, and the best of their time, that it is not worth their while to attempt to do anything. And they still believe him. So with them, none of their time is good. The season of their youth is not a good time, for that is used most in pleasure and entertainment. And what comes afterwards is not a good time, because the best of it is gone. In this way men are ruined. But what kind of madness is it for people to give way to discouragement, and as a result neglect their work because their time is short? They have need rather to awake out of sleep and to consider seriously that they may nevertheless obtain eternal life. God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may be saved. Though you are late in life, even so, God calls upon you to wake up and to apply yourself to your work. And will you listen to his warning in this great matter, rather than to the advice of your mortal enemy, the devil? Number 3. Consider how time is sometimes valued by those who have come near to the end of it. What a sense of its preciousness have poor sinners sometimes when they are on their deathbeds. Some have cried out, "Oh, 1,000 worlds for an inch of time!" Then time appears to them indeed precious. An inch of time possibly will do them no more good than before, when they were in health, a time in which they could have improved it. Because a man's time on a deathbed is accompanied with great disadvantages. But the fast approach of death makes men aware of the infinite value of time. Perhaps, when they were in health, they were as unaware of its value and as negligent of it as you are. But how are their thoughts changed now? It is not because they are deceived that they think time to be of such value, but because their eyes are opened, and it is because you are deceived and blind that you do not think in the same way they do. Number 4. Consider what a value we may conclude is set upon time by those who are past the end of it. What thoughts do you think those people who have gone to hell, having lost all their opportunity for obtaining eternal life, what thoughts do you think they have of the preciousness of time? Though they were very lavish with their time while they lived, and didn't set a great value upon it, yet how much have their perspectives changed now? How would they value the opportunity which you have if it were given to them? What would they not give for one of your days under the means of grace? You will be convinced of this either now or when it is too late. If you are convinced in the same way that they are, it will be too late. There are two ways of making men aware of the preciousness of time. One is by showing them the reason why it is precious, by telling them how much depends upon it, how short it is, how uncertain, etc. The other way is by experience, where men become convinced how much depends on the improvement of time. The second is the most effective way, for that way always convinces, if nothing else does. But if people are not convinced by the first way, the second will not do them any good. If the first way is unsuccessful, the second, though it is certain, yet is always too late. Experience never fails to open the eyes of men, even though they were never opened before. But if they are first opened by that, it will not be to their benefit. Let everyone therefore be persuaded to improve their time to their utmost. Part 5. Advice regarding the improvement of time. I will conclude with 3 particular pieces of advice. Number 1. Improve the current time without delay. If you delay and put off its improvement, still more time will be lost, and it will be an evidence that you are not aware of its preciousness. Do not talk of a more convenient time in future, but improve your time while you have it, following the example of the psalmist. I made haste and delayed not to keep your commandments. Psalm 119 verse 60. Number 2. Be especially careful to improve those parts of time which are most precious. Though all time is precious, nevertheless some parts of it are more precious than others. Above all, holy time is more precious than common time. Such time is of great advantage for our everlasting welfare. Therefore, above all, improve your Sabbaths, and especially the time of public worship, which is the most precious part. Don't lose it either in sleep or in carelessness, inattentiveness or daydreaming. How foolish are those people who waste away not only their common but holy time, yes, the very season of attendance on the holy ordinances of God. The time of youth is precious for many reasons. Therefore, if you are in the enjoyment of this time, be careful that you diligently improve it. Do not let the precious days and years of youth slip away without improvement. A time of strivings of God's Spirit is more precious than other time. At that time God is near, and we are instructed in Isaiah 55 verse 6 to seek the Lord while he may be found, and to call upon him while he is near. Youth especially is an accepted time, and a day of salvation. For he says, In an acceptable time I have heard you, and in the day of salvation I have helped you. Behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 2. Number 3. Improve well your free time from worldly business. Many people have a great deal of free time, and all people have some. If men were disposed to it, this time may be improved to great advantage. When we are most free from cares for the body and general business, a brilliant opportunity for the soul is made available. Therefore, do not spend these opportunities unprofitably, nor in such a manner that you will not be able to give a good account of them to God. Do not waste them away entirely in unprofitable visits, or useless entertainment or amusements. Diversion should only be used in subserviency to business. Only as much as necessary should be used, which does most aid the mind and body for the work of our general and particular callings. You have need to improve every talent, advantage, and opportunity to your utmost while you still have time. For it will soon be said regarding you, according to the oath of the angel in Revelation 10 verse 5 and 6, "The angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives for ever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be time no longer.